There's so much joy that comes when we know exactly what we have, where it is, and the benefit is that allows us to enjoy it all the more. Welcome to the Q4 Impact Podcast, where we challenge the cultural norms of aging through scripture, story, and conversation.
Hi, friends. I'm Ron Regenstrife, and I'm here with my co-host, Susan Kunzelman. And since the beginning of our podcasts, we have determined to bring topics that we felt were either neglected or simply never really discussed very much. So today is going to be one of those topics, and it relates a lot to what we've been talking about. And our topic today is organization.
I think you and I get excited about organization because we're prone to it. And those that are probably just got equally excited. But I'm guessing that those that don't like the term so much or being forced to be organized probably got a little nervous. But I think what's safe to say about this topic is that whether it comes easily or not, there is still such an importance to stewarding our lives well, even if that becomes a greater challenge as we age.
I think it does become a greater challenge. A lot of things become a greater challenge
True.
as we age. But I think one of the things that becomes a greater challenge is if when we're not good at something or it's not been a priority in our lives, that kind of tends to continue as we get older. And if at any point it comes to our attention to try to change that behavior, it's probably a little more difficult. So yes, it's challenging, but I'm here to say that's not an excuse that we should use to not apply new things to our lives so that we can continue to learn and get better and improve. There is no age where we're let off the hook. We don't say, all right, I'm 65, so these learnings are now over. I'm not going to take on any of these new kinds of learnings. I wasn't good at technology, so I'm 65, I'm not going to learn anything. I don't think that's a good strategy. So if organization is one of those things in your life that you might say you're not real good at or hasn't been important to you, I want to make a plea. I want to plead with you to consider that this is as important as it's ever been, and maybe even more important as we get older.
I know you've spoken in previous podcasts about having witnessed those that have been unprepared or maybe even unwilling to prepare for the end of their lives. And I use the word stewardship, and we're going to start linking stewardship with organization. And I think a lot of times when people hear the term stewardship, they think financial matters. But God's call on us as believers is that there would be stewardship over all with which He's entrusted us. And so, I use the reference of those preparing for their latter days. And so often we think preparation in terms of, are we ready to die, spiritually speaking? And then our finances or maybe those healthcare matters. But this topic is about everything. And we believe that organization is a key part to good stewardship. So Ron, as we dive in a little bit, would you begin by identifying some of those things that may require good organization?
I'd be happy to do that. I look at some of what I've been doing these last few years, even the task of taking those albums that we've had in our closet, those picture albums, and some of us may have 20 or even 30 or even 40 or 50. Others maybe don't even don't have that many picture albums and they're in boxes, or others have them on their cell phones, and they're in just disarray, and then they're not really that organized. And so recently for me, I've been organizing them so that I have access to them, so I can manage them, so I can send my granddaughters pictures of when they were younger girls, or old friends that I have pictures of us together. And it's encouraging. It's ministry. It's an opportunity to just make someone smile by, so often I'll get, wow, Ron, how did you have that picture? Or where'd you get that? And well, I have it and I know where it is. So now I have access to it. So it's pictures, and of course it's finances, and it's our garage, and it's our clothing, and it's our files, and it's our books, and whatever it is that we have, of wanting them to be in order. And I want to maybe take this a little further. And I really just have been thinking about this the last few days. I'm going to make a case that organization is a, is related to character. And here's what I mean by that. If you're my friend and I'm not organized, and you ask me for help, or you ask me to do something or help you with something, and I'm not organized, chances are I'm going to forget what you've asked me, or I'm going to do a part of it or a little of it, or I'm going to forget to meet you somewhere, or a schedule of an event. I'm going to wait till the last minute. So who wants to be that way? Don't we want to be the kinds of friends that are faithful and reliable? And don't we want to be faithful to the Lord? And don't we want to be his son and his daughter in whom he can trust with giving things to do? And so there's a spiritual side of this, I think, that probably doesn't ever get talked about.
I
And
like that. I don't think I've ever linked in my mind a character issue with organization. And yet I see it very clearly when you speak of those virtues.
yeah, it really is. Some of my favorite people, um, one of the things I love about them is when I ask for help, or for them to do something, or I've shared with them a problem that I have, and somehow they're able to remember to
Mm.
ask me about that. And some of my friends that I've talked to about that have a system of helping them do that. They write it somewhere, and in their prayer time, it's there for them to be reminded. So whatever it is that we can do, because there are some of us, a few of us have really good memories, but most of us, especially as we get later on in life, if we rely on our memories, we're going to actually get worse as we get older. So to be organized, to write things down,
Mhm.
to 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 take the things that are just piled up and say, let's get these in a place where they're manageable, so we know what we have and they're in order, brings a lot of good things.
It does. And I love that you're speaking about some of the benefits of organization. And maybe there's a little bit more to expand upon, but one of those key benefits that I'm so glad you brought in, which we had not spoken about offline prior, is that of establishing our character with those that know us, with those we love, and in the way that we can be entrusted with more from the Lord himself. So let's go into a little more depth about some of the benefits of being organized.
Well, one of my favorite ones is it's an amazing feeling. to finish something, to look at something that's kind of in disarray. How many times, and most of us have experienced this, where you finally go into your closet and you get rid of all the stuff that you haven't worn in 5 years or 3 years or 10 years or more. And at the end of it, you're like, wow, this is really, it feels good. It feels good for me to, you want to see my pictures when I had long hair? Well, let me go to my phone and get the folder out. And here's my hippie pictures. Bam. 15 seconds it takes me to access, or some memory I had about a vacation, or some pictures of beautiful sunsets or scenery. You want to know what Switzerland looks like? Well, here's my Switzerland file trip. It's great, and it blesses people. It encourages others. So there's so many benefits. Sometimes, I can be sarcastic. Did you know that, Susan?
I've heard it once or twice.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so it's almost funny where someone will come into my house and they'll ask me a question about something, as silly as maybe what year did I get my washing machine? And I have a file that has washing machine, and it takes me 10 seconds to go to get that file, open it up. Oh, here's my last. Yeah.
Mhm.
So is that is a bad thing to know what you have and know where things are and be able to provide information to understand your finances, to look back at your history, where you've been, and I don't know what possible negative could come from being organized. Well, I mean, I just thought of one.
Okay.
Yeah. So I came into the kitchen a few years ago and I said to my wife, sweetheart, I have a really great idea. How about we alphabetize the tea bags? And so maybe I can get carried away a little bit.
Maybe just a little bit. I love with the benefits that you are describing, and it's obvious just as I hear you speaking where some of your personal passions are for organization. But I think in summary, I hear you saying that there's so much joy that comes when we know exactly what we have, where it is, and the benefit is that allows us to enjoy it all the more. But I mentioned early on in this conversation that some people probably got a little nervous. And I'm guessing for some, the term organization is almost a curse word. And so we're wanting to speak a little bit to that because, even as you said, it's not hard to do, but it does require time. It does require energy. So, what would you say to the person that may be struggling with this concept?
Well, I would say firstly, it's never too late to begin working on something that perhaps you've never been good at. So that's number one. Number two, get help. There are people like me that if someone were to call me up and say, hey, Ron, would you be willing to come over and help me clean my garage? Man, I love doing that stuff. Like I'd almost pay you to, to come help you. So find a friend. And if you can't find a friend, or you don't have friends that have time like that, hire someone, to pay someone. So most people, won't even charge you that much to help you and access help in getting organized. There are books to read. Can I recommend a book, Susan?
Please.
Yeah, there's one of maybe the best book I've read on the topic is called The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. And I think it was written by a Japanese lady, but yeah, it's also a very popular book. So
Mm-hmm. It's definitely, this is a topic that's close to your heart, and I get that. In fact, I will go on record as saying when I've had the privilege of being in your home with you and your wife, I have actually chuckled to open your desk drawers and see just how beautifully organized they are. So, again, this comes naturally to you, and for others, it doesn't. And so, I thank you for those suggestions that you offered. And what we want to stress as we come to a close today is just the value and the importance of bringing organization into your life. And, we've not used a lot of scripture in this episode, and yet all of scripture from Genesis with the creation throughout shows the order that exists in all that God has done, all that He's created. And we're called to do all things decently and in order as well. So we do believe there is a biblical principle at work when it comes to organization. Um, I think that maybe in wrapping up, the biggest maybe encouragement, admonition that I would say is that as we are called to steward everything in our lives well, it is for the purpose of one day being able to stand before the Lord and hear Him say the words, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant." So, any other comments, Ron?
Yeah, I'd like to just hit one more topic. And again, this can be a little sticky for folks to maybe not want to hear, but I'm going to say it anyway. And that's there's going to come a day where our life is going to be over. And I would like our audience to really consider what that's going to be like for your heirs. If you're going to pass along to them just a mess of things, of collections of things that are old, that are not valuable, that are in disarray, that piles and piles of things. It's a reality that when you pass away, you really want to give those that are ones that love you the time to grieve, and you want them to not have to be burdened with all kinds of financial problems, with not being able to find things, with going through closets and garages full of boxes and hours and hours and hours of headache. Does anyone think that there's anything valuable about that versus getting to the end of your life? I picture my kids after I'm gone, or maybe even my grandkids, saying, "Wow, Poppy was really organized, and what a neat thing this has been. That even in this sad time of losing him, that his life it was in order. He did the needed things. He did the important things." So, can I poke you out there to there's many reasons to be organized, and not the least of them is the state of affairs that you're going to leave when you're no longer walking on this earth. So,
Thanks for providing just one more reason why this is important. And I'll add to that there's a season, perhaps in the fourth quarter, where you've been given the gift of additional time, and there is still the physicality needed to address those things. Ron, there may be some listening that hear that and it feels like more of a poke because perhaps they're past the ability to do those things easily. And that's why I want to point back to the suggestions that you provided earlier. It's worth getting someone to help. And it isn't too late. It just may look a little different. And so I'm hoping that with the poking that you're saying in jest, that it actually is an encouragement because of the reward, the benefit, the reasons that you have stated so well today. Any other final comments before I wrap us up?
how about a one-liner?
From
Us,
you or from me?
yeah, for me,
Okay.
us old dogs still can learn new tricks.
I like it. I think that works. Thanks everyone for listening. We do hope you have found this helpful and been encouraged to consider even just one area that you may be able to bring more organization into starting this week? We'd love to hear about it in comments on either YouTube or on Facebook. And we hope that you will subscribe to this podcast and share it with someone you think may also benefit. We will be back with you next Monday, taking a look at our possessions. So hold on tight. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Q4 Impact Podcast. Please make sure you're subscribed to this podcast on whatever platform you're listening on, so you continue receiving encouragement and practical tips on how to live your fourth quarter continually impacting the world around you for Christ.